Welcome to the Woman Aesthetic Podcast. Join us in seeking deeper meaning and striving to live fully in our womanhood. Welcome to the Woman Aesthetic Podcast. I'm your host, Anna. Today, I have the privilege of speaking with Abby Ethridge. Abby was born and raised on a ranch in Arizona. She fell in love with ranching, the ranching lifestyle and firefighting, and she became a firefighter in 2019 and then went to paramedic school and graduated in 2023. So following paramedic school, she was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic melanoma cancer in the summer of 2023. And she's continued working while receiving treatment and has been spreading awareness and educating people in any way that she could. So Abby, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Anna. Thank you for having me.
You don't hear a lot of women going into firefighting. I'd love to just hear why you felt called to go into that, as well as, become EMT paramedic. I would just love to hear your story on that.
Yeah, absolutely. After college, I did a year of teaching. Both of my parents are teachers. And I didn't know really what I wanted to do. So I taught for a year and I thought that this is the hardest thing. This is the hardest thing anybody can possibly do. So I decided to move home and I moved in with my grandpa and I started taking care of my grandpa. And my uncle is a captain. He was a captain firefighter out here in our little town. And he said, why don't you do a ride along? It's only about 8 hours. You can see how the fire field is, see what you do, see the trucks and maybe go on a couple calls. And I did. I went on a couple of calls. They had a great, for a person who's doing a ride along, you had a great day because we had someone have a heart attack. Someone went into cardiac arrest. It was very busy and very adrenaline rushing. And I got to see all of the engines too, the fire engines. So I got to see what they did on fires as well. And I was like, this is amazing. This is amazing. It's a hands-on job. So I'm used to ranching. I grew up on a ranch, so it's very hands-on, but you also get the medical side and you get to take care of people and being surrounded by a family who takes care of people and very much in the public eye and public service. I wanted to do that portion too. So this just kind of combined both worlds. So it seemed like a great job for me. So I moved back in 2018. That fall semester, I did my EMT class, which is a semester long. And then 2019 spring semester, I did my fire academy. And then I got hired on in my small town part-time. And then when they opened up the position, which wasn't very long after, I got hired on full-time. And I loved it. I loved being an EMT. I loved being a firefighter, but I wanted to do more medically. The highest cert that you can get is becoming a paramedic on the ambulance. So at the time I couldn't push any drugs. I couldn't give IVs. I couldn't give any pain medications or breathing treatments or anything along those lines. I could essentially take vitals, and drive. So I went back in 2022 to 2023. I took the year-long paramedic program and became a paramedic. So still to this day, I'm a firefighter paramedic and I loved it. I love it.
Wow. I love that you were like, I want to be a firefighter. And you're like, that's not enough. I want to do more than firefighting. I want to serve people more. I just feel like something like firefighting, being a police officer it is so giving in so many ways. But how did you prepare for this spiritually firefighting, but also I'm sure you've seen a lot in this job. And so how do you prepare for that spiritually, physically, mentally?
At first I didn't prepare for it. I didn't prepare for this job enough. I think physically, obviously, you watch Chicago Fire, you watch 911, you're like, I know that I need to be physically fit for this. And that's the only thing going into firefighting. You don't prepare yourself enough for it. Spiritually, I was at a point where kind of at a standstill. I was very much like, yeah, I go to church on Sundays, I go to confession when I have to. I'm a pretty good Catholic. I pray my rosary once a month, stuff like random stuff that wasn't good enough. But I just didn't think that the spiritual aspect really, this sounds horrible, but really played a part in firefighting. I didn't think that they would ever clash. And then mentally, you can't prepare yourself for this job until you get on it. I think the first year that I was on this, that I became a firefighter, the first cardiac arrest I went on, the first code where we did chest compressions, I will never forget it because I had to hold in tears until I walked out into the ambulance, and I started sobbing, crying. And the guys there were like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Somebody just died. Like, that's huge. That's huge." But they're 15 years into the job, as opposed to my first cardiac arrest. So nobody prepares you for that. You can watch it, and you can read articles, and you can do everything mentally for it that you can, but nothing prepares you for that. Nothing prepares you for your first fire, where you're on scene for 6 hours, and no workout prepares you for that. You can be physically active, and that's what I did. I woke up every morning at 6:30. My aunt and I went to the gym every morning. In Arizona, we have what's called a CPAT test that most departments make you pass. You have to wear a weighted vest, and you have to go up stair steppers for 3 minutes and drag a dummy across a long portion of the floor, and go through a Connex box and lift up ladders, and you have to do it in a certain amount of time. So you have to be physically prepared in that way. But when you're on a fire and you're there 5 or 6 hours, nothing prepares you for that. That's 112-degree weather. You're throwing up in your mask. It was just, there was a lot of things that prepared me that first year, but I don't think anything prepared me before that. And then obviously when you see people die, or when you see bad things happen, and you question God, and I think since becoming a firefighter, my faith has grown astronomically. And I didn't think that would happen, but you either have faith in the field or you don't have faith in the field. You can't really be lukewarm, because so many things happen to where you're either questioning God or you're just giving it up to God. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what I've learned over the past 5 years of being a firefighter, to give it up to God. But in doing so, you have to have a stronger relationship with God than just going to church on Sundays, Mm-hmm. So I would say just being in the field has really, every day prepares me more for the next day, mm-hmm. if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I obviously can't imagine having to deal with that. Like nothing, like you said, nothing prepares you. It's not, yeah. And even if you've had all the training, also just having that, keeping it at the forefront of your mind, like you're there in the fire for others, like you're there to watch out for other people's lives. Like, yes, you want to make it out and things, but none of us like sit here and think about putting someone that much ahead of you in a moment of such stress. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but I'm like, like you said, nothing can prepare you for that. Do you feel like when you're this is, I don't know, maybe kind of personal question, but do you feel like when you're in the fire and you're looking to get others out, you're going into danger, is there a part of you that just kind of says, run?
No, we're trained very, very well. So whereas again, it's a very big movie moment, right? Mm-hmm. So where people see a movie and they're like, oh my gosh, like how could somebody be in that scenario, where in real life, that's not what happens. If the roof is going to collapse, your chief doesn't let you go in, so if you have good training standards, which we do, my chiefs are unbelievable. They're brilliant. Mm-hmm. So if you have good training standards, you aren't allowed into a building that is, what we call defensive fire conditions that are non-living fire conditions. Okay. We have our turnouts, we have our protective equipment, we have a breathing, we have an air pack. So mm-hmm. that's what we're breathing on. So with our training that we've done and with the houses that we've been in, it doesn't get, I don't want to say it stops being scary, but it gets to a point where you've had it enough in your mental, you've mentally had it enough to where when the fire's too bad to not go in, where it's not even a survivable situation, right? So we're not going to risk our lives if we know everybody inside is dead.
Mm-hmm.
If the whole house is on fire, I'm not going to go in and bring out someone, because that puts our lives at danger. So we have a saying, it's risk a lot to save a lot, risk a little to save a little. And if it's somebody's life, and even if they have smoke damage, smoke inhalation, but they have a survivable chance, we'll go in and try to save them. But if the whole house is on fire, just like the movie, if the whole house is on fire and they run in, no, you don't. No, you don't run in if the whole house is on fire. You just don't because people aren't alive in that situation.
Okay.
So we have a very big risk analysis that we have to do, and that our chiefs do. And if they declare that it's still viable, then we'll go in and we'll assess it. And you're not in there by yourself either. You have a partner, you have a team, you have radio communications. Our radios are fireproof, right? So everything that we have is very, very detailed towards our safety. And so knowing that and understanding that, and knowing that you have a chief on the outside, we have a couple of chiefs on the outside actually that are watching this fire. So we have a lot of people that have our backs, and knowing that, it makes us feel more comfortable doing our jobs. There are a lot of fire deaths, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of people that die in fires too, but it's usually due to a safety issue. Wow. So it's not due to somebody going in and everybody thinking it's going to be okay. It's usually due to a safety issue where a person shouldn't have been in that situation in the first place.
Wow, that is so intense. How do you stay positive in high stress, like in a high stress job, and that's dealing with all of these heartbreaking situations?
I wouldn't exactly say it's like a positive or a negative. I would just say it's something that you kind of become immune to. So after you have it so many times, you're immune to it. And after you have a cardiac arrest, you'll see if you ever experience somebody passing away in your family or and your friends, and you see the crew show up, they're very immune to it. There is no emotions at all. And it's because we leave our emotions back at the station. You don't bring them. You don't bring them on a bad call. You don't bring them on a fire. There are people usually crying at fires. Obviously, their whole house is burnt up, and their life is torn apart, and you don't bring your emotions at all. You don't do it. So it's not so much as a positive or a negative. We can have a lot of sympathy for people, but you don't bring empathy. You learn the definitions between the two very well. Is you don't put your emotions on the line. You can be there for someone else. You can understand the feelings that they're going through. But you don't let it interrupt your thoughts, because when you do, then that's when you become negative. That's when you become, a prisoner of your thoughts, right? A prisoner of the emotions. And we can't do that. So on every scene, again, my first year was not great. It was not great. It was not great to all of the other guys, because all of my partners, my crew, they were all a good 10, 15 years older than me, and had at least 8 to 10 years on the job. And I'm this brand new 26 year old girl. And I have a huge heart. I have a huge heart. I love people. I love talking to people. This is my community. It's a very small community. So those guys don't live here. I live here. I know the people here. So I had to learn very, very well to not bring my emotions with me, to a car accident, to a fire, to a medical scene, where I can't bring them. So that left some, I can bring emotions to a medical call where I'm transporting a person and I'm talking to them, and then I can stay really positive to them, and I can stay very, energetic and very kind to them. And I I love talking to them. But for a sad call, you become immune to it. You when you look at those firefighters, they're not crying. They're not sad. They're not, because it's kind of like a robot. It's like a very robotic actions of, you get the person out of the car. You get the person out of the fire. You get, you take the person to the hospital or whatever it might be. Because if you put yourself in that position, then you would never be able to do this job. So there are a lot of people who shouldn't be in the positions that they are, who shouldn't be in a firefighter, who shouldn't be a paramedic, who shouldn't be an EMT, because they're not sympathetic, because they don't have. So that would be my view as not so much positive, but sympathetic towards people. That's the reason you do this job, because you're a caring person. Mother Teresa has this huge quote on kindness, and making people smile and bringing them peace, and that's a sign of their love. So that's the way I take it. I love people. I love people. I love serving people. I think I love being kind to people because I love seeing the reactions, and that's what gives me that's what makes me happy. Is seeing other people happy. But there's a lot of people who shouldn't be in the position that they're in, and who are negative towards the job, and just shouldn't have the job in general, but on a specific scene, if you see people who are just not, they're not crying with you, they're not sad with you, it's because we've seen so much of it. You've seen so much of it. You've gone through the same calls over and over and over, to a point where you can't have that emotion with you. You can't cry with them, because you have a job that you have to do, and you have to be professional. And I've had a couple of calls to people where I know who they are. I went on a cardiac arrest for a person that I knew, and my eyes started to tear up. And my uncle, who was a captain, he's retired now, but he was on the scene, and he's like, "There's a time and a place, and it's not right now." And you just have to suck it up, because that's not your job. Your job's not there to be the relative or the friend. Your job is to be the firefighter. It's to be the paramedic. So it's just a very hard job to have. It's a very hard distinction to have, because everybody that goes, I want to say 95% of firefighters who have the job love people, love talking to people, like that's why they're there, is because they care. But you have to learn to leave your emotions just out of it. And when you do that, then if somebody comes up and you're talking to them, you're super nice and you're super kind, and and then you can bring out the sympathy card. But until then, I think that's what keeps me going to a day to day, is that I can turn off that switch of, this is your job, be professional, act professional. If it's somebody I know, it's a bit harder, but yeah. And then that you're doing something good too, right? Yeah. You're doing something good. You're doing something kind. You're doing something great. You're taking care of people. You're giving back to the community. You're helping those who can't help themselves. And the knowledge that you're doing a good job and that you're doing the best that you can is always something to keep you going. Is always something to keep you positive. You get any person you take to the hospital, for the majority, will squeeze your hand when you get there and say, "Thank you so much." And that's worth it. That's worth it. Like, you get them for 30 minutes. You can change their whole life. Maybe they haven't had somebody to talk to in weeks, So if you're that one person, like, that's fine. That's what keeps me positive. That's what keeps me happy. That's why I love my job, because if I can change one person, if I can make one person's day a little bit better, or make them smile or feel attended to, then I'm fine. That's great. Then I've done my job well.
I think that's so beautiful, because as Christians, we're supposed to see Christ in every person, and you have such a unique opportunity in the job to see Christ suffering, in these people. And so, I mean, I'm sure that your faith plays a role in your job, and you've touched on it a little bit, but if you are open to it, I'd love to hear more about that. And maybe even if there's people that you have met who you work with, or who were firefighters, or, anyone, is there a difference with how they handle this job as opposed to people who have faith and who are seeing, Christ in every suffering person, seeing these people's lives, as opposed to someone who doesn't have faith. I would imagine that their view of it is different, right?
I would say yes, in my own perspective, right? So I can't tell you that because they don't have faith is why they look at patients that way. Some of the times they're just jerks, like, and they just shouldn't be in that position. But I can tell you that that my faith is the reason why I treat people with human dignity, respect. We have gone into patients' houses that have been, excuse me, I'm like choking up.
That's okay.
That have been like horrific, horrific. Like nobody should live in any of those living conditions at all. Mouse, just mouse infested, and people who have been laying in their own pee and their own feces for days. And you look at them, and some of the firefighters are like, "This is disgusting. I'm getting out." Like that's not our jobs. That's not our jobs, and our job is to take that person out. And whether it's disgusting, whether it's gross, like we're giving them a better chance of survival. We're helping them. And again, Mother Teresa always comes into my mind because the calls that we go on aren't even a quarter of what, obviously she had to go through and she dealt with, but she treated the poorest of poor. And if I can do, if I can do even a fraction of that, if I can be kind to a person who's in one of those positions, I have a mindset that's, I am so grateful. The second I come home from work, I'm so grateful for what I have. I have a very nice, pretty house. I've got running water, a nice yard. I have people who care for me, people who love me, who come and check on me all the time. And they don't, they don't have that. So I'm so grateful. And I always thank God for what I have. But then you see the people who don't believe in God, and I know some people, and so I'm not trying to say that they are this way because they don't believe in God, but I'm saying that sometimes you don't see what's right in front of you. You don't see how grateful you should be. You don't see the blessings that you have unless you look at someone else and you put that dignity of a human being towards that person. And you say, this person deserves more. We are all created in the likeness and image of God. And this person should not be in this position right now. Like they shouldn't be. So I have seen, again, I'm going to use my uncle again, because he's such a good example and such a good person. And when somebody passed away, we were on a cardiac arrest one time, and the person didn't survive. And he's like, it's in God's hands. You just have to leave it in God's hands. Like that's it. Cause he has 25 years in the service. And I had just started out. It's for us, it's easy to say, it is in God's hands right now. And, I'm so sorry, and be again, sympathetic for their loss, as opposed to other people who just don't get it. They just don't get it. They don't get the beauty of being able to help someone, they don't get it. And we're getting paid for it. I get paid to help people. Like, that's perfect. I'm lucky that I get this job. But I just don't think that some people see that, so I'm extremely grateful that I get the opportunity to take it in the way that I do, to come home and be blessed every day for the things that I have. And, if they don't go home and they don't see that, and again, those are the people who are usually negative towards the job. I just know that I'm probably living a better life. I'm probably living a happier, more full life. And yeah, it is sad.
Yeah. Wow. That is heartbreaking. It's also sad to see that, like, even, at people's lowest moments, when they are in those situations that, like, no one should be in, like and their home is in conditions that, like, a human person, it's just like hard to imagine someone living, that way, that someone would come in. First of all, you probably don't even want anyone to see you, but someone would come in and, like, make you feel even worse. Less.
Right.
Like, I don't know. That is really heartbreaking to hear. But
it takes somebody, on the opposite side, it takes somebody who has, it is like walking in. I want to be like completely honest. It's, you hold your breath, right? Like, it's disgusting walking. I'm not going to say that it's not, but you hold your breath, or you have a mask on, or you move a patient and you feel like you're going to vomit. I'm human. That's what we do, but it's a mentality that, that you're doing something right, as opposed to the second you get out, just being like, it's, another person, another day on the job, another moment I don't like, as opposed to you're doing something right. You're doing something good.
What I would be really interested to hear, because you're a female firefighter, I'd love to hear your perspective on like the work dynamic between men and women in this field.
I'm very lucky. I work with people. My entire crew have been very, very nice, and, very nice to me. As a female firefighter, there's one guy that I work with who doesn't like females, and I don't care. His opinion really doesn't matter. Nobody really cares about it. So it's just, nobody cares. But, I do know that in the fire field, not everybody's treated like that, right? So females usually have to work twice as hard to gain the respect of men. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I see these guys and they weigh twice as much as I do, and I don't get upset that they're questioning whether I can pull them out of a building or not. It's an honest question of whether I can. So to have to prove yourself is, to me, it's kind of, you have to do it. Like you owe it to them to do it. And some females will tell you differently. Obviously this is a personal opinion, but some females will be like, no, you shouldn't have to do that, because there's a lot of male firefighters that are overweight, and, they should have to prove it too. And I'm like, even the overweight male firefighters can lift more weight than I can, I mean, they're strong. They have testosterone. They have different hormones going through their body. So, in that sense, it is different. But I would say in the ambulance sense that I'm a very, very, sympathetic person. And I'm probably a lot better at a male in that position, because females nature, right, is to nurture. That's what it is. And I'm a very, very nurturing person, and I like to talk to people and I like to understand them. I like to make them feel better. Whereas a guy in that position is, do you need pain meds? Like, you okay? Very, very direct to the point. I'm trying to help somebody. I like to, like I said, I like to nurture. So I think in that sense, a female is, does have a lot of benefits. In a fire sense, I don't know. Again, the girls have to work a lot harder at that, and females have to work a lot harder at that. But I think that it can be done. Overall, females who have children, right? Females who are pregnant, probably not the best situation for them. Because of the carcinogens that, get into your body for those babies, or stuff like that. They usually take you off the truck a couple months in, as soon as you tell your administration that you're pregnant, they'll take you off the truck. So that's just an automatic difference between male and female. Guys are never going to be taken off the truck unless they have a health reason. They're never going to be taken off the truck. But females have a lot of different reasons as to why they would be taken off the truck. So there is a huge difference between female firefighters and male firefighters. On top of that, I have some statistics written down.
I was going to say, I'd love to, because with the health risks, I can't imagine like you're going into a fire, like everything, all the chemicals, all toxins, whatever, are up in the air. Plus when you're training, I mean, I don't know what the training situations are like, but I would love to hear like, what are risks for women? Because that would be very interesting I'd want to hear all of the statistics that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. So stress is a huge factor for firefighters. And again, for men, they, 95% of male firefighters will be on testosterone. They'll be on supplemental testosterone.
Wow.
You're woken up in the middle of the night all the time. And in the middle of the night is when men produce testosterone. So when you're woken up all the time in the middle of the night, it's not being produced. So your energy levels are low and you need them to be high. So that's the number one hormone they're on. You see for females, the fertility rate go down. So females that have been firefighters or that are firefighters are more likely to have a miscarriage by like 2.3%. So they're more likely to have a miscarriage by 2.3%. When females already have miscarriages, 1 out of every 4 females already have miscarriages. That's a huge percentage going up, you know?
Yeah.
That just puts like your child at risk. That puts you at risk. So that's just something that females have to be aware of. Females are more likely to get PTSD. Again, we're nurturers, you know, we're nurturers. We care. We have such a heart and such a caring ability, and that's what we were made for. But when you're put on calls like this, where guys have very, very simplistic minds of they can turn it off, it's a lot harder for me to turn it off. You know, so PTSD is very common for female firefighters. Your hormonal imbalance, you know, so your menstrual cycle, stuff like that, your energy level is depleted. You can't choose when you have a fire.
Right.
So, you know, if you're on a fire and your energy is depleted, are you really giving your 100%? I mean, obviously you are, but is your 100% what it could be? No, it's not, because, you know, you're within your cycle, and it's not, you know, it's taking your energy, it's taking your energy levels up. So it's different. It is different for females, and a lot of females don't want to say that, right? Because it's female empowerment and they're as good as guys. And I'm like, no, just stop and just realize. And I'm not saying that female firefighters are bad, because obviously I am one and I love the job, but I do realize the differences. Guys can always go. They can always have a fire. They can always find the energy. Whereas females can't always find the energy. So females also have a higher cancer risk, because breast cancer is very prevalent today. Very prevalent today. So you'll see, whereas men get 25%, usually 25% of male firefighters, well, they're firefighters, will get cancer. 40% of females will get, right? Because breast cancer is so prevalent.
40% of women?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So,
oh my gosh.
And they might get it later on in life, you know. In my fire department, there has been three females, and 2 of them have had cancer.
Wow.
You know,
why is that?
Because our hormones are, when you talk about your lymphatic system, right? So all of the carcinogens that you get, females need more sleep. Females need more sleep, which we don't get. So men can deal with it. Females cannot. You know, so it's huge. You're out in the sun. You can be out in the sun all day. You're around carcinogens all the time. You're around the exhaust of the engine all the time. Your body is constant in fight or flight mode, which is causing your stress levels to go up. It's causing your cortisol levels to increase. So there's a lot of reasons why females get cancer. So people are very much like, well, if you work out enough and if you're in great shape and if you're really healthy, you'll be okay. No, you won't be okay, because the demands of the job already give guys cancer all the time. You know, the highest for men, it's usually testicular or rectal cancer. For females, it's usually skin cancer or breast cancer.
Okay. Wow.
You know, and you're stuck when you're in a fire. You're stuck in a suit that is, your turnouts are just filled with carcinogens, and that's what you're just soaking in. You know, so you know, even proper decon are the International Association of Firefighter Foundations right now, which is throughout the United States, is being very, very, very strict with cancer prevention. So even our department, our chiefs are implementing a fire prevention act, which is complete decon. Every time you come out of the fire, you have to decon, just taking those extra measures, because it's becoming so extremely prevalent right now. So, I mean, that's what, was that answering your question?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to hear like some of the facts because like you said, well, I think in a lot of different fields, but even firefighting, women don't want to hear that like, oh no, it's not any different. Like it's gonna be all the same. And you're like, no, you have to pull your weight a lot more. Your risks are greater in a lot of ways. And like it's just yeah. Anyway, that's why I wanted to hear those numbers.
Like I wish females knew that before they went in to the fire service. I didn't know that. I didn't know any of these statistics. And the fire field is going, the female percentage in the fire field is going up a lot. You know, it's going up by numbers. You know, when I joined, it was at like 2%. You know, 2% of firefighters were female, and now it's like 8 or 9. So it's going up a lot throughout America. You know, but it's going up, and females need to be aware of this. There was a firefighter in Phoenix that did a study. She had a baby. She came back to work and she was breastfeeding, and she wanted to know how long carcinogens would stay in her breast milk.
Oh, you know, that's right. Yeah.
They stayed there for over 24 hours. So she couldn't even breastfeed her baby when she came back.
Yeah.
You know, when she came off shift, she usually, you know, just pumped and gave it to her husband. And she couldn't even do that because she's like, these were tested and they still have carcinogens in them because carcinogens get absorbed through your skin. So it's one of those things where you just have to keep that in mind. I'm not trying to derail any females in the fire service at all. Obviously, I love being in the fire service, but you need to know the statistics. One of my really good friends she quit firefighting because she had her second kid and she's like, this is too much. This is, you know, my kids need their mom. I had another friend who had a baby and she quit firefighting. So it's one of those ideas that for females that you just have to realize, like, maybe after kids, you don't continue firefighting or you don't continue it for a little bit while you're raising your children, or it's one of those mentality things where it's dependent on you of what you do. But the majority of females will probably leave the service if they have any kids.
Yeah, that's a shame, honestly, that they don't present you with the statistics because for women talking about like miscarriages and things like that. And like after you have kids, you're wanting to breastfeed, having to test for carcinogens in your breast milk, like things like that. It's affecting the future of your family. And if you want to build a family after you've gone through a career or however you want to do it, like you need to know what are your chances and if that's possible after that, or how possible is that after that, and should you be on the job after. So I don't know why they wouldn't say
I mean,
that,
it's also really high as far as like cheating, divorce rates. You know, I don't even want to bring that up because everybody's different. Every relationship is different. I'm not saying anybody in the fire field is more likely, you know, but you are more likely. I'm not saying it, but I am at the same time because
well, you're not saying just because you're a firefighter, you're going to, you know, cheat on your relationship, but there's is there like greater opportunity or are there the conditions? Like, why is that?
Well, if you take me, right. So when I started, there was 3 females in my fire department. Now there's 1. There's just me. Right. So females in fire service are 50% more likely to cheat on their husbands.
Interesting.
I mean, obviously, I'm surrounded by men. My boyfriend is a captain at the fire department I work at. You know, I mean, I'm not previously married, but that, you know, it's just it's a very high statistic, and it's very easily seen. We spend 24 hours at least, sometimes even up to 96 hours at a department. You're away from your family. Same goes for men though, because men, you know, it's the same thing. It's the cheating, it's the divorce rates, it's the people at home too. They're just left there. Like that's why I also think when we going back to faith and going back to spirituality, you really have to have a faith base, you know, coming into this job and knowing what your priorities are and knowing where your family stands and knowing where you stand. Because if you don't, you have a huge tendency of falling into one of these holes, you know, just a huge. So it's a job that pushes you. It pushes your limits. Like I said, I didn't have any like spirituality, ideas or thoughts coming into the job. And now I have huge ones. I'm constantly arguing with all of the guys about what my faith stands. They all know that I'm very Catholic, and they all know where I stand as far as my faith goes and my belief system goes. And thankfully, both of my chiefs are Christian too. So I have it. I'm lucky, but you can just tell the differences between the guys who are faith-based. My old partner was Catholic too. Great family, 2 little boys, just amazing family. The partner that I have right now, very Christian based, but some of the guys, you just on their second, third wives, like, okay, it's very common. Unfortunately, it is very common. And unless you have that faith-based, it's not as drilled into your mind. You don't have that background that you need. You don't have that platform to stand on or the formation to guide you through it. It's pretty sad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, like you said, you're in this like really high stress situation, and emotionally you have to, when you're going into the job, like you said, you're like, you have to just turn it off. And when you come back, who are you with? You're with your, other friends who are firefighters. You're there, you're waiting maybe for your next call or for your shift to be over. You're going to have to talk to someone, especially as a female. You're going to have to process it at some point. And so, I mean, to me, it makes sense when you say that women cheat more. Like you said, 50% more. I mean, obviously, I don't know how in detail how that goes about, but it makes sense that if you're looking for someone to hear you out, even if you don't mean it, you might cross the line. Because just like it's all there, the recipe's there, and so having a faith base where you're like, I know where I stand, I know my values, like that's got to be absolute game changer for both men and women.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Like my emotion, I cried. I can't even tell you how much I cried the first 3 months on shift because either I didn't do something right, or I saw a bad call, or I'm kind of a perfectionist, so doing something incorrectly on the job was just a no-go for me. But I was very lucky that all of the guys on my crew are almost old enough to be my dad. So they were all like fatherly figures, and I was very lucky, because I could cry to any of them, and they would just be like, she's okay,
she's okay,
they would just hug me or something. And my partner was great. My partner was just like an older brother. I loved his family. I loved everybody, but easily I can see how girls need someone to talk to. They're very emotional creatures. They're very, they love talking. We just love talking. We do. We love talking about our feelings. We're very feelings based. And so some of the guys are too. And and when you get into these conversations, you sometimes have to just stop yourself from going to a place where it's too far, a place where it's too far. And thankfully I've never had to do that, but I know a lot of female firefighters who have had to do that, who have had to stop the people, or who have had to switch different shifts, or the men have had to switch different shifts or switch partners because of that case, that case in point. And it is very difficult. It is, again, I can't really talk because my boyfriend works there, so I'm one of those people, we were partners before we were dating. So, but you're right. I have the mentality of, if he was married or, anything, there's a line, there's a border that you don't cross. Yeah. And a faith, and a faith to back me up, where I know cheating's wrong. I know divorce is wrong. I know commitment is under God. I know, marriage vow is under God. So I have all of those things to back me up in a good formation that I stand on. Yeah. But for people who don't, it's like 80%. I want to say 85% of first responders will be remarried.
Wow. That's heartbreaking. That's so sad.
Yeah.
That is really sad. Well, I want to switch gears a little bit because I want to talk about your cancer diagnosis. And just, I mean, first of all, it's one of those things that you hear more and more, like people saying people saying they have cancer, or like we're seeing little kids who have cancer. Like cancer just seems to be so, I don't know, just there. Like online, you see people on Facebook. There's like, I think I just saw a post recently of this little girl who has cancer, and it's like this little boy who just died from cancer, and it's like, I don't know. It just seems to be more present in today's world for some reason. But yeah, I'd love to know, like, when did you find out? How did you find out? Just like that beginning of like finding out, like I have cancer.
Yeah, absolutely. Right after medic class in 2023, I had a little bump under my arm, and my brother-in-law is a PA in dermatology. So I sent it to him. I sent it to my sister, and he's like, you know what? It looks like a lipoma, which is a ball of fat. It's like a culmination of fat, which I've had before. And I was like, okay, like weird, but whatever. They go through your lymphatic system, and a ball of fat just clumps up, and that's it. It usually disintegrates, and it's not a big deal. Mm-hmm. But I go to my dermatologist. I've had skin cancer, topical skin cancers before. Mm-hmm. So I went to my dermatologist, and she looked at me and she's like, I think it's just a lipoma, but we'll biopsy it. So we biopsied it, and it came back metastatic melanoma. I didn't have any symptoms. I had a headache like once every blue moon, mm-hmm. but I thought that was just a dehydration, which still to this day, it might've been dehydration. So we weren't sure. But she's like, I shouldn't be laughing, but my doctor's like, it's okay, Abby, we're going to get this taken care of. There's great treatments. And she was going on this rampage, and I was like, what are you talking about? Like, it's just a little bump, just remove it. Mm. And she's like, well, you need a PET scan. And I was like, okay. So I went and got a PET scan, and I had 8 tumors in my brain. I had 2 in my lung, 1 in my thyroid, a couple in my abdomen. So I had that's why it's called metastatic melanoma, is because it's moving and it's latching on to different places in my body. And that's what made it stage 4. So I didn't know stage 4 until that moment. And then I started freaking out, my family started freaking out. My friends started freaking out, but yeah. So then I just started treatments from then. I had a treatment once a month. At first I had 2 treatments once a month, and I started to get really sick because my body was allergic to one of them. I have what's called immunotherapy. So it's different than chemotherapy. Chemotherapy kills all of the bacteria in your system. Immunotherapy boosts your immune system. So okay. I'm very lucky because metastatic melanoma doesn't respond to chemotherapy. It only responds to immunotherapy, and sometimes not even that. So I'm extremely lucky. And that's why I've still been able to do my job too. So they reduced it down to the 1 treatment. I've been getting it for the past a little over a year, and I'll still have it for the next year. The cancer is mostly gone. I just have a little piece left in my abdomen, which is why I'll still be on treatment. I get sick a little bit afterwards, but I kind of compare it to pregnancy, like morning sickness. I've never been pregnant before, but this is what I would expect it to be, like morning sickness. I'm like, that's what it's like to me. It's not horrible. It's not, it's not horrible. Sometimes I get pretty sick and I feel nauseous, but other than that, I'm extremely lucky. I'm so lucky that it's been taken to the treatment so well. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Wow. Well, I remember when I got the text of, okay, well, for people who don't know, I have known Abby since college. Like you were in my wedding, a very dear friend. I remember when I got the text, it wasn't from you. It was from someone else. And they were saying, hey, like, I think we should pray for Abby. Like we should get something together, like, prayer bouquet, and we should get all these things together. And I remember reading the text and I just felt cold all over. because it is one of the things that like, oh, I know someone who's very close and very dear to me and they have cancer. Like, and I don't know. I just like felt cold and I didn't know how to like text you because I was like, I feel like a horrible friend because I feel like I should have known too, which I'm like, how would I know if I didn't ask you, you know? But did you ever have that moment where like maybe when it did set in, like I have cancer, where you thought about like, I have a whole life in front of me, that there's things I want to do. There's a family I want to grow. There's like my job, like I love my job. I have ranching. Like, did you ever have that moment of like, well, what now? Like, what, do you know what I'm saying? Like when it set in, when
Yeah.
it hit you,
Like your whole life flashes before your eyes.
Did you have that moment?
This is actually pretty funny. So, I saw A Fault in Our Stars, which is awful. It's an awful movie, you know, but it's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. And obviously that's the first thing you think of is when you hear stage 4 cancer, that you're going to die. And a lot of people do die from it, you know, so I don't want to make this sound like it's a lot easier than what it was, because so many people do not respond well to the treatment. And if you don't respond well, it just continues to grow. So, I am so lucky. The first day I cried really hard. I called my parents and I didn't want to cry to them, too much. You know, I felt fine. So I didn't want to stress them out too much, but I mean, they stressed out. When you hear your kid has stage 4 cancer, you stress out. So my mom went straight to the diet and the foods and, clean foods and clean eats. And, it's something that I'm at first was like, no, mom, like, you know, and then I got on the bandwagon, and now I'm still on the bandwagon where, clean foods, like food just has a tremendous healing, you know, to it. If you know what it is, supplements have huge healing purposes, working out and getting your vitamin D and doing all of these detoxing methods. So there's so many things that I know now that have helped me through it. And that my mom has been huge in my healing. My dad is a Catholic school principal, and he he told his entire school. So I had all of them praying, but not only that, he knows, people from my college, you know, he knows people in different countries. He knows people in Ireland. I had somebody who went to Lourdes and got holy water for me and brought it back.
Wow.
Like huge. So I've had people throughout the entire world praying for me. And I think that that's what's been, you know, the number one thing for me is I have cancer, and some days are my low days, but I'm just taking it one day at a time. I haven't had to take off a lot of work. I haven't had a lot of problems with it. I have appointments, but there's only been a couple days where I felt too sick to come into work. So the firefighters are awesome because they know that right now I'm only working on 70%. You know, I have an adrenal insufficiency, which means that I don't have any thyroid production. I don't have any cortisol production, which is energy. You know, that's your energy level. So I'm taking medications for it, and it's still low.
Wow.
So, you know, I'm not always working at 100%, but, and they know that. So, you know, for the fires, they expect my best, you know, and whatever I can do. And for medical calls, they know that I'll never let a patient down. So my chiefs have been so supportive. I'm crazy supportive. And everybody that I work with, and my family and my friends. And, I do remember talking to you later on about it. And I was just like, yeah, I feel okay. I feel okay. Like, you know, I'm waiting for it to hit. I think I was freaking
out more than you were freaking out.
I think everybody does, because when you're the one who has it, you're like, when is it going to hit?
Okay.
When is it going to hit? Like, when am I going to feel so sick that I'm on a couch, or, you know, that I'm bedridden? Like, when is that going to happen? I think the biggest portion that when it did happen, I had radiation at the beginning. After my PET scan, I had 3 rounds of radiation, and my hair started to fall out. So I had like this huge chunk of like bald, and it kind of looks like that hairstyle, you know, when people put up their hair and they've just like shaved bottom of their head. Yeah. And people are like, yeah, you look fine. I was like, this does not look fine. Like, it does not look fine. It looks awful. I had like a huge bald spot on the top of my head. And thankfully I have like thick hair. So if I put it a certain way, I could almost cover it. I was in a wedding and I really couldn't cover it that much then, but now it's grown back and it's great. But I think that was one point where I had a mental like break. I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm losing my hair. And obviously that's the most vain thing you can think of, but I was like, I'm losing my hair. But since then I've been so lucky. The people that I see that are getting treatments with me, like the way that I don't know how they're living. I don't know how they're pushing through. They have chemo, so it's so much worse. And I take any suffering that I have and I give it to them. I give it to people who need it, because my pregnancy pains aren't aren't anything to be compared to. So that's how I look at it.
Wow. I think you're very strong in it. And yeah, every time that I've talked to you about it, you've never sat there and, which this would totally have been valid, but sat there and like just talked about how hard it was and how it's affecting your day to day, because it is, it is affecting. And I don't know. I'm like, for someone to sit there and not like complain, which would be, again, very valid. I don't know. I'm like, she's so resilient. Like, she's just keeps going. I don't know.
Oh, that is so sweet. Well, and positivity, positivity and mindset is a huge thing in cancer too. So if I think if I let myself go down this rabbit hole of poor me, woe is me, look at me, like not so much look at me, but I would think it's more of an attention grabber, because right now I'm doing okay. And yeah, it does affect my day-to-day life. And my energy's a little bit lower. Sometimes I'm more tired, stuff like that. But it's nothing to be, I don't know. I don't know. I keep a positive attitude about it. And I know that I only have a year left. So, if I have a year left, and again, this is also where my faith grew, my spirituality grew, where, I always say, if not me, then who? God gives suffering to people, and he only gives you as much as you can handle. And if this is my suffering, that's okay. Like, that's okay. Like, I can handle that. I can't handle, something I can't handle is fasting. I need food, but I can
handle cancer, but I can't handle not having my sex.
Right. My mom's always like, my parents fast a lot, and they fasted for me a lot. And it was huge. My mom's like, we're fasting and we're offering up so much. And I was like bawling, crying, because I was like, you don't need to do that, because food is important. And it's so nice, like so nice. And so many other people were doing that too for me, that they were offering up masses. And God just says the more suffering you do, the closer you are to him. And so I take it as I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky to have this job. I'm very lucky to have a diagnosis that isn't going to kill me. I don't think, it is not going to kill me, but that brings me closer to him. And what more can you ask for? I was talking to a little kid with cancer. You just brought up a little kid with cancer. One of my friends' younger brother has cancer too. And we kind of just came to this realization that if we died, which is morbid, it's obviously a morbid thought, but when you have cancer, you have to think, but like, it'll be okay, because, you're only on this world for so long. You're only in this life for so long. That's okay. It's okay if we went right now, like, our families would understand, we would understand, and it would be okay. But, we're both still here. We both live to see another day, and we both, just offer up our sufferings. And the majority of people who go through the most sufferings are probably the most positive people, too, because I'm not going to spend my day complaining, It's just not, no, I'm not going to spend my day complaining. I'm going to spend my day fighting fire.
Yeah, like every average person.
Yeah.
Well, there's this really great book that this was like a couple years since I've read it, but it's called Love, Medicine, and Miracles. And the subtitle is Lessons Learned About Self-Healing from a Surgeon's Experience with Exceptional Patients. That's a mouthful. And it's by Bernie S. Siegel or Siegel. I don't really know how to pronounce it, but he was talking about patients, and he was saying exactly what you were saying, were the ones who had the positive attitude, positive outlook in life, the ones who went out of their way to look for alternative things to help their healing or their like just overall health, like, you know, looking into the medicine, looking into the food, questioning the doctors, the difficult patients, he said were much better off because they had that like spirit of resilience and that spirit of fighting. And he was saying in the face of things like cancer, in the face of any kind of big medical situation, he was saying that those kinds of people will recover better, they'll recover faster. And I thought that was so interesting because we don't think about the fact that, literally just the human spirit will pull you through sometimes. And I mean, we see it in stories, but even just like being sick or anything, healing, like that is so important. And I think what you're doing, having the positive outlook, you're still living your life, you're still going to work. I think that is doing a lot. But the other part is, have you done and like looked into other things besides the treatments that you've been receiving? Have you looked into, you know, other medicines or other supplements or other like changed the way you live to help heal you?
Absolutely.
What have you done?
I'm actually starting an Instagram page just to show everybody, to anybody who's in this or wants to do cancer prevention. Huge. And like I said, my mom really got me started on this. But my eating has changed drastically to organic foods, to so many veggies, to so many fruits, to so many grass-fed meats. Anything from the store, I don't really trust. If it's Sprouts, maybe, you know, I do farmers market. I do, we have a great butcher here, you know, and you can get fresh meats, you know, and it just, food is huge because the artificial dyes, the amount of, I don't have another word for it, but crap, you know, the amount of chemicals that are in your food that the FDA approves and lets you eat is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's not allowed in any other countries. It's poison. It's used as poison. There's pesticides. Like all of this is getting into your body. You know, this is Diet Coke. People are like, nah, Diet Coke is fine. You know, anything with diet. It has aspartame in it. Aspartame is a chemical that's also used to kill plants.
Wow.
You know, so really, we're going to put that in our bodies. So red dye 40 is made up of bugs. It's a little bug.
Yeah. Red dye 40 will make you act like a crazy person. Like, right.
It's horrible for you. It's absolutely horrible for you. So learning more about the foods, you know, that's food is the biggest healing property for your body. You know, it is from the inside out. And after treatments, you know, because my treatments are helping me and I'm very grateful for them. But after treatments, I come home and I do a detox, and I do a very, very in-depth detox. So from coffee enemas to red light therapy to magnesium baths to dry rubs to castor oil packs, I do a full detox to get all of, because that's a lot of medication that's going through my system that I don't really like in my system, but it's also boosting my immune system and killing the cancer. So, you know, it's a two-sided sword, you know? Mm-hmm. So I do a full-on detox. Absolutely. Sleep is extremely important, you know? So I try to get to bed anywhere between 8:30 and 9, you know, and just make sure that I have a full night's sleep. Again, the firefighting, it's not always very beneficial. And so so I'm definitely starting to think of different, you know, different sources of income that I could do instead of firefighting because of all of the statistics that I've learned about. But as of right now, it's, you know, I love my job and I'm going to keep it. But there's just different things that you can do. I think detoxing is the number one thing. it's just the number one thing for anybody, because you have all of these toxins going through your system, and in order to get them out, you need to make sure that your body is completely your body is completely clean. You just need to get all of them out, that you're doing the right methods. And I went in after I took a treatment, and I waited like 2 or 3 weeks, and I had my blood levels checked again. And my doctor's like, "Are you?" She's like, "Have you drinking any alcohol?" I was like, "No, I can't have alcohol during treatments." And she's like, "Well, your liver enzymes are 89. And they're supposed to be like 8 to 13 is a normal liver enzyme reading."
Wow.
And she's like, "Yours are 89. It looks like an alcoholic's liver." And I was like, "What?" And so I came home and I did a castor oil wrap, and I kept it on my I don't know if you've heard of that or not, but they're super easy. You get them off of Amazon. You get organic, castor oil, and you just put it on your liver. And I slept in it. And the next day, I went to go get my blood drawn again, and it was 8.
Wow.
So all of these methods. I follow so many people on Instagram and read so many books, and it's just the healing properties that you have at your own disposal are incredible. So,
well, what is you mentioned you have an Instagram page. What is the name of your Instagram handle so that people can look you up, and what can they expect to see on it?
Living Life in the Desert is the Instagram handle. I haven't posted anything. Tomorrow's my first day of posting something, because you have to make all of these videos first. So tomorrow's my first day. But you'll be able to see, it'll be a new thing every day, so different videos. But it has red light therapy, and has the benefits of it. And the caption is going to have everything in it. And just, it's simple stuff from grounding, going outside, stepping with your own feet on the ground, and getting your electrical current to stabilize, to sourdough bread and the foods that, help you, that benefit you, the organic vegetables, the fruits and salads and soups that you can make. And so it'll just have a bunch of different things, and obviously seasonal decor, because I love seasonal decor. But this is a burst of flavor.
Oh my gosh. Well, that sounds incredible. So I can't wait to see it. I'm going to definitely share it. All of your stuff, of course. But before we wrap up, I asked this to every guest that comes on the podcast. If you could give women one piece of advice, it could be on this topic or it could be on anything else, what would it be?
I would definitely say, before you do anything, look at your health and your family's health, and your life and your survivability of life and everything like that. It should be your number one. It shouldn't be your number one importance. Besides getting to heaven, obviously, that should be top priority. And so for the things that you're doing, for the females that are looking into firefighting or going into firefighting, there's been a lot from our college, that have now gone into firefighting. And I'm just like, stop and look at the statistics. It's a great field. I love it. I'm never going to bash. I mean, I love this profession, but it has cost me, a great deal. So it's something to stop, to look, if it's gonna lower your fertility rates and you might want children one day, is it worth it? Is it worth it? Are you doing everything that you can right now to benefit your future family? And I'm not saying don't do the field, but I'm saying just keep these statistics in mind, that maybe one day when you do have your family, maybe this isn't a job that you continue, or it's a job that you take a lot of precautions in doing, or even in anybody's life. If you're not a firefighter, take these preventative steps that you have, and that you can do. And follow my page, or follow anybody's page that has, cancer, and that take natural steps to preventing it, because right now it's huge. Cancer is huge. Just like you said, it's the rates are going up so high, kids cancer, everything, because our food is unregulated, because, everything around us is unregulated. You need to be the person who regulates what comes in and out of your body, what your body touches, the products that you're using, the foods that you're eating, anything that you're doing, you have to be in charge of that, be in charge of your own life. So, to all the females, just educate yourself on cancer, educate yourself on firefighting if that's what you're going to do. Because there are a lot of downsides that you might not know, So, yeah.
Well, Abby, thank you so much for coming on, and we're just so open and honest about something that's really personal. And so this was an incredible conversation. I really appreciate you talking about this.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy that I got to come on and spread awareness and tell people my story. Thank you.
And thank you so much for listening to the Woman Aesthetic Podcast. Let's connect on Instagram at the Woman Aesthetic Pod. And if you are loving the podcast, I would be so honored if you'd go ahead and hit that like button and leave me a review. Until next time.